Every story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. An end. Following it from start to finish is one of the most effective ways to learn English, absorbing the structure of the language completely. Today's narrative is about the art of finishing, and it is also an opportunity for you to improve your English in a cohesive and inspiring way. We are addicted to beginnings, the thrill of a new idea, the blank page of a new project, the promise of a new you. But what about the less glamorous phase? What happens to the last, tedious 10% of a task? Why are we so good at starting the race and so often so bad at crossing the finish line? This is the story of Ellie, a wedding planner who created the most brilliant beginnings but left a trail of loose ends. Ellie was a seller of dreams. In her initial meetings with clients, she was magnetic. With her infectious energy, she painted pictures with words, describing grand visions for the big day. Couples would leave her New York office floating, certain that their wedding would be a work of art. She was, without a doubt, a fantastic starter, but Ellie's office was a museum of unfinished beginnings, mood boards for new projects, full of promise and inspiration, covered every wall. Meanwhile, her assistant spent her days on the phone, putting out small fires from weddings that had already happened. Overdue final payments, unsent thank you notes, details that had been forgotten in the rush to the next exciting project. In Ellie's mind, this overlap of projects wasn't chaos, it was success. It was a sign of high demand, proof that she was creative and sought after. She didn't realize that the lack of completion was undermining her reputation, turning her from visionary to creative, but chaotic. She was so addicted to the thrill of the start that she had forgotten that excellence, in fact, lies in the finish. The seed of change was planted in an unlikely place. Amidst her chaotic schedule, Ellie had a mundane task: to take a client's groom for the final fitting of his suit at the atelier of Mr. Albert, an old-school master tailor. To her, it was just another stop in her busy day, an item to be checked off the list. But upon entering, the pace of the world seemed to shift. Mr. Albert's atelier was not a place of haste, it was a sanctuary of focus. The air smelled of pressed fabric, and the only sound was the smooth glide of a pair of scissors. On the large work table, there weren't 5 projects in progress. There was only one, a single jacket, receiving the master's undivided attention. While the groom was changing, Ellie was forced to wait, an activity she detested. And, with nothing to do, she watched the tailor. Mr. Albert wasn't cutting new fabric or attending to another client. He was sitting, in silence, hand-finishing the buttonholes of that jacket with a needle and thread. Ellie, a woman who measured her day in dozens of started tasks, was fascinated by this devotion to a single, tiny detail. Finally, Ellie's impatience broke the silence, driven by her mindset of always jumping to the next task. She asked, "With all due respect, sir, why do you spend so much time on a detail that almost no one will notice?" Mr. Albert paused. He didn't seem offended. He held the needle up to the light, as if showing her a jewel. "My young lady," he said, his voice calm, "anyone can make 90% of a jacket. The cutting, the sewing. But the finish, the last 10%, is where mastery reveals itself." He then tied the final knot, cut the thread with precision, and looked directly at her. And you can never start a new jacket with threads still hanging from the last one. The image of hanging threads hit Ellie with an unexpected force. In her mind, she no longer saw the mood boards of her projects, but a chaotic wardrobe of unfinished pieces, each with loose threads, tangling with the others. The unconfirmed payment, the unsent thank you email, the unsolicited feedback. She realized her business wasn't growing, it was unraveling, one loose thread at a time, due to her complete lack of finish. Ellie returned to her office, and for the first time, didn't see the energy of creativity, but the chaos of loose ends. She called her assistant and instituted a new, radical policy, posted on the wall for both of them to see every day. Project 100% complete. Then next project. Following the rule, however, was harder than creating it. The struggle against the boredom of the final tasks was real, and the temptation to jump to the creative phase of a new client was like a siren song. But she persisted, and upon completely finishing the first wedding under the new discipline, every payment confirmed, every vendor thanked, every post-event detail resolved, she felt something new. Not the adrenaline of the beginning, but the quiet, deep satisfaction of completion. A sense of mental clarity, of space, that she hadn't felt in years. In the following months, the finish became her new trademark. The stress in her office was replaced by a calm, deliberate workflow. Her team, once overwhelmed, was now happy and focused. And the client testimonials began to change. They praised her, not just for her creative ideas, but for her flawless execution from start to finish. She had learned the tailor's lesson: mastery is not in how you start, but in how you finish. Ellie's journey from chaotic starter to master of the finish teaches us a fundamental truth. Enthusiasm is in the beginning, but value, reputation, and true professional satisfaction are in the completion. Her story shows us that finishing a single task with excellence is infinitely more productive than starting 10 with passion, only to abandon them at 90%. The old tailor's lesson is an invitation to look at our own work and our own lives, and to identify what are our loose ends. What unfinished task is draining our mental energy. The challenge is to commit to completely finishing one thing before allowing ourselves the addictive thrill of the next beginning. If this story about the art of finishing and the power of the last 10% resonated with you, leave a comment below, like, and share the video so this message can find others who need a reminder to complete their project. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that teach us to work with more mastery. Until next time, stop leaving hanging threads and tie the final knot.